Okay, so maybe you're thinking about reading Ulysses by James Joyce, but
Yeah.
I don't know. You've heard things.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. It's not exactly light reading,
Right.
not something you take to the beach,
No.
and it's known for being really, really dense and complex,
Yeah.
like a literary Everest.
Yeah.
So is it actually worth the climb?
It
But
is.
we've got a ton of reviews
Yeah, it is.
and insights here to sort of help us figure out
Okay.
if this notoriously challenging book actually deserves a spot on your reading list.
Okay.
And spoiler alert, our expert says yes,
I do.
it is a masterpiece. But get ready for a wild ride.
It's a tough one.
Yeah. I'm already feeling a little intimidated, and I haven't even opened the book yet. Some reviewers are pretty blunt.
Yeah.
Like one just straight up said, life is too short to read Ulysses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is it exactly that makes this book so challenging? Is it the language? Is it the structure?
I think it's a bit of everything. Yeah.
Joyce, he intentionally set out to create something really complex and multifaceted.
Right.
One reviewer even compared reading Ulysses to scaling K2.
Oh, why?
Like you're not prepared for it, and it might just do you in.
Right.
And Joyce, he was fascinated by puzzles and riddles.
Yeah.
And he just packed the book with them.
Really?
He uses this technique called stream of consciousness,
Okay.
which basically means you're experiencing the character's thoughts
Okay.
as they happen, jumping around and unfiltered.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
add to that his experimental prose and ever-shifting writing styles, and you've got a recipe for a pretty intense reading experience,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, so it's a challenge. I get it.
Yeah.
But for those of us who aren't literary scholars,
Right.
what's the point?
Oh, go.
Why is this considered such a masterpiece?
Well, Ulysses really revolutionized the way we think about novels.
Okay.
It broke all the rules and pushed the boundaries of what a novel could be.
But beyond the technical achievements, there's incredible depth.
Okay.
Take Leopold Bloom, the main character. He's just an ordinary guy wandering around Dublin on June 16, 1904.
Right.
A date now famously known as Bloomsday.
Bloomsday, right.
One reviewer even compared Bloom to George Clooney's character
What?
in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, really?
Another much more lighthearted take on the Odyssey.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings up kind of the elephant in the room.
Sure.
The Odyssey.
Right.
How essential is it to have read Homer's epic poem
Yeah.
before tackling Ulysses?
Yeah.
Be honest. Do I need a classics degree to even attempt this?
Not at all.
Okay.
While Joyce uses the framework of the Odyssey to structure his novel and add these layers of meaning, Ulysses really does stand on its own.
Okay.
You don't need to be a Homer expert to appreciate it. It's more like Joyce is taking those themes and those characters from the Odyssey and reimagining them in the context of early 20th century Dublin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, you've piqued my curiosity. I'm still on the fence a little bit.
Okay.
Can you give me a concrete example of what makes this book so brilliant?
Sure.
And what about the humor?
Yeah.
Some reviewers mentioned that Ulysses can be quite funny.
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
There's a scene in the Circe chapter where Bloom is put on trial.
Okay.
An hallucination.
Oh, wow.
Accused of all sorts of outrageous things.
Oh, my goodness.
It's surreal, bizarre, and honestly pretty hilarious.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the Ithaca chapter,
Okay.
which is written in this deadpan Q&A format.
Okay.
It takes something as mundane as filling a kettle
Right.
and describes it in excruciating scientific detail.
Oh, gosh.
It's Joyce's way of playing with language
Okay.
and making us see the ordinary in a whole new way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That does sound different.
Yeah.
Okay, one more thing before we move on. Molly Bloom.
Right?
Her soliloquy at the end of the book is legendary. But what is it about this section that has everyone talking?
Molly Bloom's soliloquy is a tour de force.
Okay.
It's a stream of consciousness outpouring
Okay.
that spans 8 sentences
Whoa.
and 40 pages without any punctuation.
Really?
It's raw,
Wow.
unfiltered, and gives you direct access to her thoughts and desires.
Oh, good.
It's considered one of the most powerful and controversial depictions of female sexuality in literature.
Interesting.
One reviewer called it orgasmic,
Oh, wow.
while another hailed it as the greatest piece of writing they've ever encountered.
Well, you certainly can't accuse Joyce of being boring.
No.
That said, I have seen some criticism of his portrayal of women.
Right.
Is there a disconnect there between those who praise Molly's soliloquy, and those who find Joyce's female characters problematic.
Yeah.
Is there a conflict there?
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
Okay.
While some celebrate Molly's soliloquy as a feminist triumph,
okay,
others argue that it's still a male interpretation of a woman's inner life. And the Circe chapter, where Bloom's fantasies play out, definitely veers into some uncomfortable territory.
Okay.
With objectification and even violence.
Oh, wow.
It's a book that reflects the complexities of its time.
Right.
And sparks important conversations about gender and representation.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like Ulysses doesn't shy away from those difficult topics.
No, it doesn't.
So we've talked about the challenge, the brilliance.
Right.
But what about the emotional core of the book?
Yeah.
Is it all just intellectual gymnastics, or is there something more human at its heart?
Well, one of the things that makes Ulysses so remarkable is how Joyce manages to balance that experimental style with genuine emotional depth, despite the complexity of the language.
Right.
Bloom's humanity really shines through.
Okay.
You see his anxieties, his desires, his struggles with grief and loss.
Wow.
It's all there in his stream of consciousness.
So even with all the wordplay and the Homeric parallel, there's this realness to Bloom that connects with readers.
Yeah.
It's not just an intellectual exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Ulysses is ultimately about life.
Yeah.
In all its messy and complicated glory.
Right.
It's about those small moments, the everyday routines, the thoughts and feelings that make us human.
Right.
And Joyce captures it in a way that's both groundbreaking and deeply moving.
You mentioned earlier that Joyce was such a master of language.
He was.
And some reviewers highlighted his, inventive use of puns.
Right.
And even made-up words.
Yeah.
Can you give us a taste of that? What does that look like on the page?
Joyce's wordplay is legendary.
Okay.
He blends multiple languages.
Wow.
He uses puns and allusions and even invents his own words.
Wow.
There's one scene where the sound of a waterfall is described phonetically as pulafuka, 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 pulafuka.
Oh, my goodness.
It's playful, inventive, and sometimes downright bizarre.
Wow.
But it reflects this chaotic energy of Bloom's thoughts.
Okay, so we've got Joyce intentionally bending language.
Right.
Playing with structure.
Yeah.
Constantly challenging the reader.
Yeah.
But there's also this incredible depth of character.
Right.
Particularly with Bloom. I'm sensing a bit of a paradox here.
Yeah, what's fascinating is that the complexity of the writing actually enhances the emotional impact.
Okay.
Bloom's vulnerability and humanity are all the more striking.
Interesting.
Because they're presented in such a unique and challenging way.
Okay.
Joyce is forcing us to work for that emotional payoff.
Okay.
And that makes it all the more rewarding.
Ulysses often gets grouped with other challenging books.
Right.
Like Gravity's Rainbow or Infinite Jest.
Yeah.
For someone who's maybe daunted by the prospect of tackling any of these,
right,
how would you compare them?
Yeah, they're all considered challenging, but for different reasons.
Right.
Gravity's Rainbow is dense with historical references and the sense of paranoia.
Right.
While Infinite Jest is sprawling and digressive, Ulysses is challenging because of its experimental style.
Okay.
And that stream of consciousness technique.
Right.
It's almost like Joyce is trying to replicate the way our minds actually work.
Yeah.
With all their leaps and tangents.
So different kinds of challenges.
Right.
But all ultimately rewarding in their own way, I imagine.
Yeah.
But bringing it back to Ulysses.
Sure.
Knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
Its brilliance, its difficulty, its impact.
Right.
What's the best way for our listener to approach this monumental work?
Okay.
Should they just dive in head first, or is there a strategy for success here?
I think the most important thing is to go in with an open mind.
Okay.
And a sense of adventure.
Right.
Don't be intimidated by its reputation.
Okay.
It's okay to not understand everything on the first read.
Right.
Or even the second or third.
Right.
There are resources available, companion guides, annotations, even podcasts like this one.
Right.
The point is to engage with the text, to let it wash over you.
Yeah.
And to be open to the experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly.
And speaking of journeys, we've talked about Leopold Bloom.
Right.
We've touched on the Odyssey parallels.
Mm-hmm.
And we've hinted at Molly Bloom's infamous soliloquy.
Right.
But we haven't really unpacked that last one.
Sure.
It feels like the grand finale of Ulysses.
Yeah.
And everyone seems to have an opinion on it.
It's true.
So what's the deal with that?
Molly's soliloquy is one of the most talked about sections of the novel.
Okay.
It's the culmination of everything that comes before it, and it's both breathtaking and challenging.
Okay.
Some reviewers found it to be a raw and unfiltered expression of female consciousness, a celebration of life and desire.
Okay.
They were struck by its honesty, its sensuality, its power.
But there are also those who found it less compelling, right?
Yeah.
Did some reviewers have issues with it?
It's not universally loved, that's for sure. Some find it rambling and incoherent, or even offensive in its portrayal of female sexuality.
Wow.
There's debate about whether Molly's voice is truly authentic or simply a male fantasy of a woman's inner world.
Okay.
It's a complex and polarizing piece of writing.
So it's a mixed bag.
It is.
It sounds like Molly's soliloquy is almost a microcosm of the entire Ulysses experience, challenging, rewarding, and open to multiple interpretations.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it.
Right.
Ulysses doesn't give you easy answers.
Okay.
It forces you to think, to question, to engage with the text on your own terms, and come to your own conclusions.
I like that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Ulysses, what's your final recommendation for our listener? Is this a book they should tackle, or should they leave it to the scholars?
I think it comes down to this. Are you curious about a book that broke all the rules? And changed the course of literature? Are you willing to step outside your comfort zone?
And embrace a challenge?
Right.
If the answer is yes, then Ulysses is absolutely worth the effort. It's a book that will stay with you long after you finish the last page. But if you're looking for a light and breezy read, this is probably not the book for you. Yeah.
I love a book that stays with you even if you don't understand all of it on the first go.
Exactly.
And honestly, even if you decide Ulysses isn't for you right now, we hope this deep dive has given you a glimpse into its brilliance and complexity, for its humor and its heart, and for its enduring legacy as one of the most groundbreaking and influential novels ever written.
It is.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll find yourself ready to embark on that epic journey through the streets of Dublin with Leopold Bloom. Until then, happy reading. And remember, even the most challenging books can offer the most rewarding experiences.
So it sounds like you're saying even just dipping your toes into the world of Ulysses, even without reading the whole thing, can change your perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a book that has permeated culture. Even if you haven't read it, you've probably encountered its influence in other works of art, in music, in film. And even just understanding the basics. Like the fact that it's structured around an ordinary day. The way it plays with language, the sheer audacity of it all. I think it can shift the way you see literature. And even the world around you.
That's a powerful statement. And it's making me think of those books that everyone claims to have read. But maybe haven't actually finished, you know? Like Moby Dick. I'm sensing a bit of a kindred spirit in Ulysses.
There's definitely a similar mystique surrounding both books. Both are considered monumental works of literature. Both are notoriously challenging. And both have become cultural touchstones even for those who haven't read them.
But I think with Ulysses, there's an added layer of intrigue because it's so experimental, so unconventional. It pushes the boundaries of language and form in a way that continues to fascinate and challenge readers even a century later.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's your final verdict for our listener? Should they climb Mount Ulysses? Or admire it from a safe distance?
If you're someone who enjoys a challenge, who's curious about the power of language, who's not afraid to step outside their comfort zone, then I say absolutely go for it. Give Ulysses a try. Find a reading group, get a companion guide, listen to podcasts like this one. There's a whole community of Ulysses enthusiasts out there who are happy to help you along the journey. But if you're looking for a quick and easy read, if you're intimidated by the prospect of something dense and experimental, then maybe this isn't the right book for you right now. There's no shame in that. I think that's great advice. There's a time and a place for every book. And sometimes a book needs to find you, not the other way around. But even if you decide not to tackle Ulysses today, Hopefully this deep dive has given you a newfound appreciation for its brilliance and complexity, for its humor and its heart, and for its enduring legacy as one of the most groundbreaking and influential novels ever written.
Absolutely.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll find yourself ready to embark on that epic journey through the streets of Dublin with Leopold Bloom. Until then, happy reading. And remember, even the most challenging books can offer the most rewarding experiences.
Exactly.